let's look at the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Cincinnati Bengals, trying to not just get back into their winning ways, but I guess there's a chance that they can get in line and somehow catch the Chiefs. I don't know, but they opened at -4.5. That line has jumped to -14. Do you like that, Bo? I don't know.
Obviously, I think you're going to lean towards it. You're going to lean towards the Steelers just because I think the drop off between, who the Bengals have at quarterback now is so sharp. But I think when you look at it, the Steelers have had trouble putting games away. They've had trouble pulling away from teams. I don't think we've really seen them dominate a team since they played the Browns back in like week 7. They haven't been able to pull away. They haven't been able to dominate certain teams like they should have. And I think that's going to be a little bit of a thorn in the Steelers' side. Might be a little bit of a motivation for them to try to come out and put this one away early and keep it that way. But, whether or not they can keep 2 touchdowns of distance between them and a weaker Bengals team, I think it's going to be a big test as to whether or not they're the true contenders in the AFC.
Pittsburgh is 10-3-2 against spread in their last 15 games versus Cincinnati. Cincinnati's 1-8 straight up in their last 9 games. And the under is 5-1 in Pitt's last 6 games. Let's go ahead. Let's bring in Joel. Let's get his thoughts on this game, as he is a professional gambler here. I would think he's impressed with the fact that I even went 9-7.
9-7. That is a winning record. That is one of the best seasons that the Detroit Lions have ever had in my lifetime. So congratulations. I think you got Gary Moeller pulling the strings with you over there. Wow, that is a deep cut. And for tonight, Pittsburgh Steeler game, I'm looking at making a stupid money line play, but maybe talking with some of the powers that be over at the Props Network, having me a little gun shy. Over the summer, when I was talking with you in Arizona, I was working with a young walk-on wide receiver, and he played with the Bengals starting quarterback tonight, Ryan Finley, in high school.
Ooh.
Did not have a lot of positive things to say about him. So that being said, I will be backing the Steelers 14 points tonight. This is the Steelers shellacking. This is not a backup quarterback. This is a third-string quarterback, and it's not just the quarterback play. Cincinnati, they cannot protect at all. With the absolute epidemic of injuries on the Steelers defensive side, I don't think that Tomlin has any option but to bring the pressure against this inexperienced quarterback with, limited mobility, to say the least. So I like the Steelers. I think it's going to be a 27-10 ball game for them. And I kind of like the Giovanni Bernard props across the board because they were just kind of mean to him last week. And he's a good guy in that locker room. They're going to make it up to him.
You think so, huh? So, my thing is, if you're picking the Steelers, but you think Giovanni Bernard is going to have a good game, I'm going to go the other way. And my prop bet for the game is you could take the touchdown score, the first touchdown score, Chase Claypool plus 750. That's one that I like.
When are they going to start offering Eric Ebron drops as prop bets?
Total Steelers drops, whatever it is, take the over.
Take the over, the most drops in the NFL, and I think those all belong to Eric, actually. 37.
Deontay Johnson has 12. So
okay, I forgot you. I'm talking with the Pittsburgh homers. There's only one player on the Steelers I pay close attention to, and he's dropping a lot of key third downs for you. That's all I know.
And where did Eric Ebron used to play?
Indianapolis, right?
I do remember he was picked over a defensive tackle who was pretty undersized. So, they probably made the right pick in selecting him. Certainly, Aaron Donald won't go on to do anything in the NFL. He couldn't even beat the Jets. So Eric Ebron was the right pick there.
We're obviously talking about the Detroit Lions. Is where he began his career.
We don't need to go there. There's nothing going on in Detroit. If you don't want to, we like a quarterback who plays hurt. Cool. That's what you want out of sports.
Yes, yeah. Okay, so the real bet, Ben Roethlisberger over 2.5 touchdowns, TD passes. I'm going to take that at plus 125. I think that the Steelers right the ship, and Ben Roethlisberger has been just as much of a question mark as the drop passes in terms of, is he getting old? Does he have an arm left? Is he still one of the best quarterbacks in the league? He's going to show it tonight, if nothing else, because as you mentioned, they're playing the Cincinnati Bengals. What else can you expect to happen?
Yeah, this is the right the ship game for the Pittsburgh Steelers. There's been a lot of disrespect heaped upon this franchise down to when they were chasing 16-0. And now on the tail end of 2 losses, they're not even being considered one of the top teams in the AFC. Make your statement. Remind the NFL, media, and fans at large who you are. And that's a threat to win the Super Bowl this February or March, whenever we get it.
It's crazy because they lost to Washington and Buffalo, and I felt like the media was acting as if they were like going to end the season 7-9 or something. Like, no, this is a quality football team. This is a football team that hasn't had a losing season since Mike Tomlin has been the head coach. Ben Roethlisberger doesn't even know how to. He's never had a season where he's had a losing season. Like, I think you have to add some respect to their name. And also, my favorite quote of the year was, did you see Mike Tomlin mic'd up when he was talking to Chase Young, not Chase Claypool, or the Washington football team? He's like, we'd have to have some really bad seasons to get a player like you. Yeah, the Steelers aren't having bad seasons. They're just not.
But they didn't even have bad seasons. They do have a player like them in Watt. I mean, that's if I'm Watt and I see that clip, I'm scratching my head going, huh? I'm going to win Defensive Player of the Year. Why is he sucking up to Chase Young?
He probably would like to have two players, one on each side, if he can.
And given the level of injuries on that defense, Tomlin will take any player he can get. Like, I think they've got 3 potential Pro Bowlers out for the year.
Out for the year, yeah.
It's a tough circumstance. Like, in both those losses, they both kind of keyed on one play. Like Washington, they made a great play towards the end and picking off Ben. And then against Buffalo, they were in control of that game, and then Ben threw an awful pick towards the end of the first half.
Oh, that was devastating.
Yeah, it never recovered from there. And Buffalo, they're that sort of young, excitable team. They get a little bit of wind in their sails. They're really hard to contain. If you kept that big brother dynamic, you would have been fine. But that pick really hurt your chances there.
Yeah, and I think it definitely gave. There's no doubt in my mind that that's what really propelled the Bills to kind of feel like they were back in the game, and they got to a little energy, and they're pumped. And we didn't talk about this over under. I think I am going to take, if it's at 40.5, I think I'm still going to take the under.
Whoa.
The Steelers, their defense is rank 1, but when I look at their record, and then I look at their last 5 games, it's not like they're scoring a lot of points. So I still feel like we're going to end up in a situation where maybe it's, I don't know, 40.5. I think the Bengals 10 points.
Yeah, and I know the records don't really show this, but the Bengals, they are the most inept team in the NFL. Like with the Jags, with the Jets, you can point to points on their roster where you go, oh, those are really young, promising units. They're doing a good job developing that team. With the Bengals, maybe there's a couple nice young receivers, but there isn't a single positional unit on that roster where you go, oh, I see the plan. They are working towards it. It makes sense to me. And that's an indictment of Zach Taylor. Like, that dude has coasted off a great first half of his first game for 2 seasons. The Burrow injury is on Zach Taylor 100%. There was no play calling. There was nothing in the offense designed to protect Burrow. And then he went ahead, he pulled a Carson Palmer, and it's no surprise.
I'm thinking the final score is going to be 24-10. So at 34 points, I'm going to take the under.
Yeah, I think we might. I think that's a good prediction. And I think I'm talking myself into backing the Steelers -14. It's a Monday night. I don't got work tomorrow. I have a little shekels on this game. And, don't you think you could feel kind of stupid if you end up backing Cincinnati in this one?
Yeah. I don't see it. I don't see it, especially without Joe Burrow. Like, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you're losing the third best quarterback from a rookie class, it's going to be a big loss for a franchise.
Bo, what do you think?
I think it's hard to call somebody the third worst or the third best quarterback from a class when he only had like 6 games in, that Bengals offense that we just talked so much about. He's probably up there with Herbert if he has the full season and everything, maybe a Keenan Allen that Herbert does have. But I think it's hard to take the Bengals and the 14 points because, like you said, it's a poor matchup. I think there's not an area of strength for the Bengals, especially when matching up against the Steelers defense. You talked about the Gio Bernard rushing efforts. I think that's going to be hard for him. You're going up against a very stout, Pittsburgh front, even with the injuries to guys like Bud Dupree and Devin Bush in the middle there, and then Robert Spillane in the middle there. And then I think they're down to like Avery Williamson at this point. You've had a couple more guys go on the COVID list. This Steelers team is depleted, but I think they're still a lot stronger than Cincinnati, and I think they're going to come out, like I said, a little motivated to try to bounce back from the last 2 weeks. And this is the first time they've had rest. I think that's the one thing we haven't talked about enough coming off of those 2 losses. They played 3 games in like 2 weeks because of
11 days.
Because of all the delays with Baltimore and then Baltimore got to play that game on a Tuesday. Meanwhile, Pittsburgh played Washington on a Monday afternoon. They didn't even get that extra day of rest. They had to go up into a really tough opponent where I think a lot of people were looking at that as being their first loss in Buffalo, ended up being their second loss. But still, like you said, 3 games in 11 days, that's not easy for any team to do, especially a team that had been depleted over the last few weeks in injuries as much as Pittsburgh had. They've had a little bit of breathing time here now between that loss. I think they are going to bounce back strong. I would lean towards Pittsburgh and the points.
All right, I'm convinced. If I got the blowback cosign, I'm going to the bank and I'm putting in my loan application on the strength of Pittsburgh. Thank you, Bo.